And we are live. Yes. Okay. So this is the America Scrum and TakeMeAway Scrum, whatever you want to call it. So I moved it. I pushed this off for 1 hour, and I was thinking about asking you guys whether this time could be okay for you. Then we could join the TakeMeAway, Scrum and overview, talk with the America Scrum that we're supposed to run every day anyway. I know we said 6 p.m. UTC, but if we could have this time instead, that would be the best. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it?
It should be good. I'll probably have to take it on a case-by-case basis, just contingent on work. But yeah, that's fine by me.
Fair enough. And you, Patrick?
It's okay for me. I'm just wondering, Sampriti if he'd be able to make it.
Oh yeah, Sampriti. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I'll talk to him before we make a decision. Yeah, that's right. He's a few hours ahead of me, so yeah. Okay, but I talked to him. Well, anyway, let's do this today. So let me go to screen share and. How about we do a regular Scrum thing to start with before we go over and talk about the project-related things? I was hoping we could do some voting on some stories later on. But if we just go over the usual, what we've been up to, what our plans are, and if there's any blockers. The usual Scrum questions. Michelle, if you would start.
Sure. I really haven't done much past committing that model because I'm kind of just waiting until we figure out what the next steps are. So I guess you could say I'm blocked there.
Okay. So your immediate plans would be depending on what we kind of decide today.
Correct.
On today's meeting. All right. And Patrick?
Yeah, so my status is the same as yesterday through the chat Scrum. I basically built the menu category model and defined migrations for the table as well as a couple of join tables associated with that model. And I've got the tests ready to go as well. My tests do not pass because they require the presence of, I believe it's the menu table in the database. So they're failing on me. I could stub that out and continue, but I'd rather just wait. I'm also waiting on more of a group discussion on resolving what we're going to do with our model structure, our database structure. I think there's some open questions there, and then we got to start making forward progress on some of these coding items once we resolve that. I think we're struggling to get the team together, as a team for a discussion. The last few days, that's really held us back.
Yeah, I spoke a little bit to Raul about this earlier today over a Slack in a private conversation. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what we come up with this meeting. So as with Michelle, I understand that your immediate plans are depending a little bit on what we assign, what we come up with today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's pretty much it. I think we need resolution on some main starting points, some main structural aspects, and then we can start assigning additional stories to people and can make forward progress.
Cool.
Right now we're a bit stuck. We're a little bit stuck.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I had voiced this in chat as well, but I would really like to be a part of the authentication task. That said, I'm fairly new to it, so I'd like to pair someone who's kind of more experienced with setting up device.
Gotcha. Absolutely, I would take that into account then. So let me just tell you guys about my day in terms of this project and Agile Ventures as a whole. I attended the morning Scrum where I met up with Sam. We spoke a little bit about this and that has to do with Ventures. I was actually in the afternoon Scrum with them as well, where we spoke about the necessity of redoing some of the basic structures of Website 1 in terms of how we present the call to action, the next step for a person that comes into Agile Ventures, because the way the site is built up right now, it leaves new members kind of hanging, with no clear path how to proceed later on. And a few months back, I took the initiative to create a document that had to do with different development paths for different individuals, different roles. If you're a developer more, or if you're interested in project management, or if you're interested in community development, etc., etc. So there's this document here saying it's called Agile Ventures Paths. So if you guys ever have a chance to read through this and leave some comments, this is a work in progress. We haven't finished this off yet, but do have a look at that and give us some inputs. And basically, what we want to do is to tell people that, okay, so if you're a developer, these are the steps that you can take to join certain projects and start collaborating. Or if you're more into project management, these are the possibilities that Agile Ventures can provide for you, etc., etc. So we have to do this better, because the way the site is presenting the whole community for new visitors is not clear enough. So that was one topic that we covered today. But in terms of TakeMeAway project, I was talking to Raul a little bit earlier today, and I also spoke to Sam about this. That we did the right thing. I believe that spending some time looking at the domain model and kind of defining what is this application all about, and it's always a good practice to do that at the beginning of a project. But I feel personally, and I think, and this is something that Sam backs me up on, is that we need to take a little step back from the modeling part, because a data model in an agile project can undergo many changes, and kind of morph into something else that that we anticipate from the beginning, and start to do this the behavior-driven development way, looking at different workflows of defining certain defining the data that we're going to work on. Like when an admin logs in, he wants to create a dish. What happens when he does that? And in that process, we can define the attributes and make changes to the model as well, because the information that he needs to have access to is not known to us right now, but it will be more clear when we see how things are supposed to be done in the application. So I think that the next step for us now should be to do this the BDD way and work us our way from the user's perspective, top down, basically, and that is defining the users, specific user stories and scenarios, as you already started to do, Patrick, in one of the I think you added quite a lot of scenarios to the admin story in Pivotal Tracker, right?
I added a couple of feature scenarios, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
To that feature, just that high-level feature description that you'd written, I kept that intact, and I added a couple scenarios, fleshing it out further.
Exactly. So, I think that, but anyway, coming back to me, this is what I've done, and my plans for tonight is to attend this meeting, and hopefully, if I have some time, to do some pair programming with any of you on some of the stories. But my blocker is, and I understand it's the same blocker that, as you guys have, is that we don't have enough stories in the backlog to work on, basically, because we haven't assessed them. And you guys know that in our workflow, we create stories, we write a user story to everything, and then we have to give them points, like the 1, 2, 3, and we can catch us. Nobody can start working on a story before it's been assigned points or assessed. So I believe that this is something that we should do now, today, if we can. And it would be, of course, better if we had the whole team, or perhaps some more people in this meeting. But generally, what we have said over the years in Agile Ventures is that if we have 3 people in a meeting, then we can actually vote on stories. 2 people is not enough, and of course you cannot do it yourself. Just 1 developer, but 3 people is the minimum. So I think that we can make some decisions today, even though we have people that are not present today. So that would be what I would propose for today's meeting, is that we start voting on some stories that are essential for us to move on. We have at least some of the models defined right now. Not every model is defined. I think Sampriti's menu model is not finished yet, as you pointed out, and Raul's user model is not merged in yet. But I would suggest that we move forward by voting on, first of all, prioritizing these stories that we have in the icebox right now, and to just kind of figure out in what order we should deliver these features, and then to talk about them one by one, and vote on them. Designate some points to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So I would say, and this is just a suggestion, so let's talk about this. But I would say that a good thing for us to do is to scaffold the admin interface as a first step, and the second step would be to add the authentication and authorization to the application. And these stories are kind of interconnected with each other, because if we settle, and I believe we can at least try to do that, to use the active admin gem. Active admin relies on device for authentication. So the next step would be, so we could take out authentication from this story and add it to the admin interface story, and what would be left is the authorization, and that is the can gem that we could use for that. That's my suggestion. It's kind of a de facto standard in Rails, but yeah, there are other authorization gems as well. But I think that one works best with device, actually. But these 2 stories would give us a framework of how to move forward with other stories, basically. So that's one thing. The other thing is that if we create after we have created the admin interface, we automatically have an admin user. So I would say that what we could do after that is to create the menu categories workflow and create the workflow, how the admin is supposed to create dishes or products to sell in his business, because that is kind of the foundation. You can't create any orders or display anything if you don't have or create daily menus if you don't have any products, basically. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say in this, if we put the menu item workflow, and then after that we have the menu workflow, because if you have menu items, then you can create menus, basically, right?
Right.
Yeah. This one we could move down. Image to dish. We can wait with that. Yeah. Create Bayfront. Create sales report. Yeah, we could wait with that. Create payments. Yeah, I would say that we could add a story called order workflow. So and add it. Yeah. Okay. to do menu item. Yeah, Michelle, so you created the menu items, right? And there is already a price in menu item, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so we can ditch this one. It's my fault, I didn't know that, so...
I think I just have name and price in there.
Once again?
I think the two attributes I set up were name and price.
Good, great, okay. So, okay, so I think this makes sense. Create admin interface, create the authorization thing. Authentication will be included in the admin interface already, so... well, perhaps we can keep that text.
Is that true? I thought we also need devise to work.
Yeah, but active admin is dependent on device is a dependency of active admin.
So it integrates devise in there, huh?
Let's see here, just quickly. So we could check that quickly by going into the GAM spec, and we see that it doesn't. Interesting. Let's go to the documentation. Document links, getting started. Yeah, we try not to do this. So active admin is built with other open. Yeah. But I'm kind of surprised that you don't. So it says here that it's dependent on device. But if I look at the specifications, it doesn't say. Or does it? No, it doesn't.
I didn't see it.
That's weird.
Maybe a gem it does include pulls in device or something.
Yeah, but it could be. But I think we already have device. What are we taking away? Let's have a look. Come on. There you go. No. We don't have device. Okay, but let's cross that bridge when we get there. But since active admin includes device in some way, so when we install active admin, we will probably need to install device at the same time. So there is no need for us to have two stories basically that handles device, because it feels rather redundant. Yeah, will be probably the thing that we will be handling or taking care of in this second story is more of this authorization rather than authentication, basically. So yeah, let me just. I'm kind of. What am I here? CD. Oh, check. Okay, so let's focus on this first story, the admin interface. Have you guys had a chance to look at the active admin gem, read some documentation or something?
I haven't. I just explored the ASRA app, which, as you know, is all active admin for the most part.
Yeah.
And that's where I got it.
Specifically a little bit, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, I think we can try to. I say it's a good thing to use active admin. I think we gain a lot of it on by doing that. I'm not entirely convinced that it will work, so I would say that we could, integrate it, see if it works, if it gives us what we want, and if not, we just back out of it, basically. But for 90%, I'm fairly convinced that it will be okay, but I'm not, totally sold on it. But I still think it's a good choice for us at this moment. So how about me as a task, just say that as a part of the story, add active admin is kind of a requirement for the delivery of the story, right? So after, when we install active admin, what we do then is we generate some sort of controllers for each workflow, that we want to do, but that is not covered in this particular story. It's not within the scope. When you install active admin, you can get active admin to pull in your controllers and your models and set up, for everything. But I would say that is not part of this story. So I would say that this story is just about creating the frame, the application frame, and install device and get an admin account up and running.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So.
Hi everyone.
Hey brother, I didn't see you coming.
Yeah.
What's up?
Good. Just came back.
Okay, cool. So we are getting ready to vote on the first story for tonight, which is setting up the active admin interface.
All right, cool.
All right. So.
Sure.
What we're saying is that we're adding active admin. We create the framework for this application, and we add an admin account to this. And that's it. This is the delivery for this story, basically. I think, yeah. And then after that, we need to add some sort of. So what I was saying, telling Michelle and Patrick, is that authentication is already covered in active admin. So in this second story, we will be working with authorization. So we have to authorize the admin to do certain things and exclude normal users from, doing certain things. Basically everything. They cannot even log into the application.
Okay.
Because they are only allowed to log in through the API that we will build later on.
Yeah. Sure.
And then after that, we just, we create the menu item workflows to create products, and then create menus, and then create orders. So I think that these stories is something that we could vote on today. But this active admin interface being the crucial one that we need to work on before we can work on anything else, basically. All right.
All right. Cool.
So I say that in terms for us to do this, some sort of test-driven development way, we need to write acceptance tests for the active admin interface, basically. So at least for the admin user login or exclusion of another user. So I don't think that we need to cover this in many specs, but rather focus on Cucumber scenarios and features. So having said all that, are we ready to go to a vote?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So you guys know the drill. 1 if easy, 2 if semi-easy, or 3 for hard story, right?
Which one are we voting on now?
Once again?
First one? This is the first one?
The active admin story, yeah.
Active admin.
Yeah.
And so the
So
vote
what's your screen?
the test writing as well, yeah.
Once again?
When you're voting overall, it includes the test writing portion of it, correct?
Absolutely. The whole thing.
Your screen?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. There we go.
So just so I understand, because this is not driven or informed by our models, this is basically standing up vanilla active admin.
Yes.
And so we can explore its capabilities and talk about it. That's essentially it?
Yes. Well, we're gonna have to have Raul's user model merged in before we can move on to this story, because ActiveAdmin either creates its own model for users or uses whatever model that already exists, basically.
I see. Raul, how do you feel about that? I know we have some unresolved dilemma with respect to do we subclass admin and customer from a user model superclass, or user superclass, or do we just have one user class with attributes that indicate whether it's admin or customer?
Okay, so we had a chat about it this morning, Thomas and myself, and I think let's just keep it simple for now. We keep one user class, and then if later on there's a need to expand it, we can always do it. Okay.
Okay.
I would say that it's totally okay for us to do that, because since we have this is admin boolean, right? So we can identify who is an admin, and then we can, using the authorization tool, gem, we can exclude admin from being able to create orders for himself, right? Because an admin shouldn't be able to order food from his own restaurant, but he can of course create orders for other users. But we can settle that. We can define all that using the authorization library later on. So I don't see a need to subclass users or clients.
Yep. Okay, makes sense.
Cool. So Raul, we also spoke about that you would add has many orders.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Cool. Wonderful. All right. So, are we ready to vote?
I am.
All right. So,
can you remind me the scale again? It's 1, 2, 3, and I forget the numbers if you don't mind.
Just 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Yeah. 1 being the easy one, 3 being the hard one, and 2 being, something in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay, so if everybody typed in their values, and on my count of 3, we press enter. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we have a majority of 2s, and Raul deviates a little bit, saying 3. Any reason for that, Raul?
Well, it's mainly because I haven't done much with ActiveAdmin. I don't know, but I can settle for 2. It's fine.
All right.
If I'm not mistaken, the actual setup and install of ActiveAdmin looks super easy. It's I think the tests that are probably going to be the hardest part for me.
Why are we always afraid of testing?
Because testing is hard. Hacking applications is easy. Designing applications, doing. Anyway, it is actually the hard part. And especially in the beginning with Qux, with Cucumber, if you have to write not only the feature and scenarios, but also all the step definitions. So that's rather hard. But let's settle for 2. I think it's a good call. So on this note of the authorization, yeah. So so let's rewrite this a little bit. So call it add authorization, and in order to access all management features, I would like to be authorized to do so.
Be as an admin, yeah?
Yeah, as admin user. As an admin user, in order to access all management features, I would like to be authorized to do so. That's enough, right?
That's kind of the chicken or egg scenario, though, where we were talking about modeling it a little bit. Like, we probably want to have a slightly better idea of what we want those features to look like, and I don't know, do we want to have that discussion as a full team, or how does that usually work?
Okay, so let me answer this way. In this particular case, what defining the scope of a story is always an important thing. And in this particular case, what we want to do is that we have, in previous story, we are building the framework of the application, and there are no features in it yet. There are only ability to log in to the application, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to authorize the user to log into the app, we could do it very simple. Just, is admin true? Then log him in, right? Mm-hmm. But since we know already now that we will have other features, and there are some order creation or menu creation, etc., etc. So we already now know that we will have different abilities assigned to these two types of users, one being admin and one being not admin, right? So we have to give the non-admin users ability to not log into the application but still create an order, right? So they won't be able to use the web interface for order creation, but rather the API, right? So for that we need some sort of a more advanced mechanism than just the simple check of the Boolean, is admin or not. But we don't have those features yet, right? So the scope for this story is just to set up, do a basic setup for authorization tool, and that authorization tool that I would suggest is the can gem, basically. Can. It's actually the name, but that's the way it is. Yeah.
On that particular story, we were just looking at the active admin story. Mm-hmm. It's hard to go into detail as to what an admin user does when they can log into it. That is the chicken and the egg problem that we have. But on the other hand, what you wrote there, to me, looks like a scenario which could have two features in the same story.
Right.
Feature one would be, as an admin user, I can log in and gain access to the initial admin screen, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever the landing page is for an admin user logging into active admin, I gain access to that. So that's one feature that follows this scenario that you've got as a description. The second feature would be, as a non-admin user, and when I type in explicitly the URL, basically trying to bypass routing on Rails, I'm denied access, and I hit a unavailable screen coming back to me or something like that, unauthorized screen. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? I think those would be two good features to add to this scenario that you.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, it was a great idea.
I would just add the third one as a user, as a customer. If I log in, you get to the customer landing page as well, not the admin.
Yeah, that would be a good one too.
But okay. But we won't allow them to log in at all to this application.
A user?
Yeah.
Maybe I just want to order something. I don't want to leave my details on the website.
But I think that it makes sense to have it as an option so you can see previous orders or not have to enter your contact info every single time. And how's the admin going to be able to report on users if it's not tracked?
Oh, it will be tracked. No. Of course, it will be tracked, but they won't be able the users won't be able to log into this application through the web interface at all. What we've talked about is that we have a separate application that speaks to this one.
Yeah.
Through
an API.
Oh, I missed that. Okay.
But the user will never be allowed to log into this web interface. Yeah. Yes. But that's what I'm saying. Here's the challenge for us, because even though we are in the previous story, the active admin story, we're talking about the web interface more than in this one. We're talking about certain features, and certain features can be accessed through different interfaces. One being the web interface, the other one could be the API, right? So we need to have authorization for other users as well, using the authorization gem, but they won't I mean, they don't necessarily have to log in through the web page, basically. But the thing here is also what I want to stress out, that all these features are not yet defined. So we are not going to define abilities. We're just going to implement the mechanism to be able to define the abilities later on when this necessity should arise. Does that make sense? Because there is nothing to manage yet. We haven't built those features.
Sorry, I'm thinking. I'm not entirely sure that I follow, but I'm okay just going with the flow.
No. But perhaps I'm just. It's I want to explain this, so we all are on the same page here. Since what I'm trying to say is that since we do not have defined or created a feature for example, menu item creation or menu creation or order creation, or these features are not implemented yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so since they are not implemented, we cannot allow people to do them or exclude them from being able to do them, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so at this stage, when we are implementing an authorization mechanism, the only thing we're doing now is just to set it up. And later in the future, as we move along in the development process, when we actually build and implement new features that are supposed to be allowed for some and disallowed for some other people, then we will add, the abilities, basically.
So that all makes perfect sense to me. I think the disconnect is the description there. The scenario, as an admin, I want access to all the admin functions. I think those two things are too contradictory to me.
Okay.
So Thomas, one thing is, I think this admin application that we're building is mainly going to be for the shop owner or maybe his staff members. Yeah. And then
not even mainly. It's exclusively for them. Actually.
For them only, yeah. not the customers. It's not going to be used by the customers. So the authorization thing might become helpful if we want to restrict access to certain feature from the staff members.
No. Well, not quite, because so all right.
Because otherwise, this application is only for the admin.
No, not really. Here is the web interface is only for admin and staff people. All right, but the features itself, because the other way to enter this application will be through the API, right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
So somebody logging into the external website that talks to this one through the API needs to be able to access it, but
sure.
This way.
Sure, no, it makes sense.
So that's why we need this authorization library to allow people to do certain things, no matter what interface they are accessing those features from.
So I agree with Michelle. I think the description of this add authorization thing is confusing. If it's just to spin up active admin, what's it called? Is it active admin? Yeah, thank you. If it's just to spin that up and explore it, I think this thing is not a user story. It's more of a chore or a task. But what you've got written there is a user story. It's basically a scenario. So it's kind of confusing to me to talk about that as just spinning up a gem to explore it versus a real user story. You know what I'm saying, Thomas?
I know what you're saying, and I see your point. Yes.
Kind of like we want to call it the spike or something, not a if there is a story type of a spike. Anyway.
I see what you mean. Absolutely. I see this slightly different as a continuation of this first story, actually. So active admin spinning that up is kind of behind us. Let's assume that we already have that, just for the time being. Let's say that we have installed it, and we have a user model with this isAdmin boolean that Raul defined, and this is how we let the admin to log into the system, right? And now we're moving ahead. So we're looking at the next thing in next phase in development. So what we are saying now is that I don't want to use this, only use this is admin boolean to allow this admin user to log in, but I also want to, when he is logged in, give him a set of permissions to do certain things, or at least give him well, okay, so I would not give him a potential set of permissions, because those permissions are not there yet, because there's nothing to permit, because we have no. Okay, I understand this is becoming a little abstract here. So yeah, perhaps we should what we should do is we can move this story further down below. Basically, I mean, this is perhaps not necessary right now, because what it probably makes a better sense when we actually have some features to allow or disallow people to do, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps that's a little better approach to this.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Other than, as I suggested, just a top-level thing. Once we've got ActiveAdmin working, a feature would be that an authorized admin could log in and gain access to this app, this authorization, this admin app, and a mere user could not log in nor spoof their way into it.
No. But again, that's one thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what I'm saying is that the user is supposed to be able to access certain features, but not through the web interface, basically.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's what this authorization is for. You know, that when there's, because even with the API, we will use the device to log this user in, but not to the admin interface, you know, but to the system. You know, we will give him authorization token, you know, to do certain things. And what is he supposed to be able to do with this token? You know, and he will, for instance, he will not be permitted to create a new dish or a new menu, right? Because he's just a client of the restaurant. But he must be allowed to create an order. So that's what this authorization tool will be used for later.
I guess I'm a little confused by that. We talked about the customer using a totally different interface, possibly built by a third party.
Yeah, but absolutely. But he will still, okay. But he will still work toward with even. It doesn't really matter how he accesses the application. You know, in order to be able to create an order, for instance, even though he does it through a external website, since this website is supposed to talk to our application through the API. It is like he is a user of this application itself.
Yeah, so Thomas, what I'm hearing is we're getting into a mere customer out there has to register with this other app, the ordering app, if you will, in order to enter an order. And you understand what I'm saying? I'm not sure.
Okay, so we will not. Okay, so if we have a look at the external app, right, like the order,
the customer ordering app, whatever.
Let's call it this. Customer, yeah. The customer ordering app will never authorize the user itself. You know, it's just a mere window, a mere way into this application. You know, so the user fills out the form with his username and password, but there is no database in that customer order app. What that application does is sends a post request to our application to create a new session in the main admin application, you know, and it returns if he checks out as a client, as a user. What this API does is it sends back an authorization token to the customer order creation app, or whatever we call it, right? And that is stored in that session. And then when we keep using this API, you know, he wants to look at the menus. There is again a question asked to our application, digs into the database, pulls out the right menu for this particular day, sends it over as a JSON response. That response is parsed, and display it to the user, and the user clicks on a order button, whatever dish he wants to order, then yet another post request is sent to our application, and this and that. And in order to be able to do that, because when he creates an order, through the API, our controller has to handle that. There's a request down to our database, an active record call is made, and an instance is recorded in our database, right? So to be able to do that, he needs to be authorized somehow with our application, right? And that's what this authorization gem is for.
We need to manage the session that the user's going through on that app. The session management to me is different than the user being authorized. I guess I'm being troublesome.
Well, actually, there is one session in that app, this order creation app, but there is also another session in our admin app itself.
Okay. No,
yeah.
I see where you're going with that. All right.
So what I'm trying to say is that what we want to do here in this store is just to create, because the way this is done is you create a file. I think it's called ability.rb or something that this can gem gets its information from. That is, perhaps I as an admin log in and that file is checked. What can an admin do? Well, he can do basically everything in this application. And we set that on a model. You can set that on a model level. You can set it on a controller method level. So you can allow certain people to, check the index of a controller from a controller, but not the show pages, for instance. So there's a wide variety of abilities that you can assign to a user. But so there's a session for an admin, right? When I log in, cool. But then somebody else calls this application through an API, and there's we have to make a check. So what can this particular user do with in terms of creating models or reading the database, etc., etc. Oh, he can only create a new order. He cannot create dishes, for instance. So that is all set in this ability.rb, for instance.
Yeah. So the customer comes in. The customer may be anonymous to us. We don't know who it is, but we know it's the customer. And the authentication, the authorization that we apply to the customer would be through, I assume, largely can. That authorization would have nothing to do with active admin, correct?
No.
Exactly. Okay, good. We're on the same page then. I'm glad we had a long way to get there, but I think that was a worthwhile discussion.
Good.
Yeah.
So are we everybody on the same page now?
I guess so. I just came back.
Okay. Great. How are you doing over here? Talk to me. Are we on the same page?
Yeah, we are. That's cool.
I didn't ask you. I asked Michelle right now.
Okay.
Sorry, I must have been muted. I said yeah.
Okay, good. All right. No, because it's very important. As Patrick says, this is nothing that we need to take lightly. And yeah, so this
avoid further confusion. I don't know if this is just part of meetings that I've missed as far as just the overall architecture goes. It might not be terrible, Thomas, if you wanted to slap just a really simple arch diagram up, just so people can kind of see that it's going to be decoupled most likely, the user piece of it and the admin.
All right, I set that up. Sure, I'm gonna. So, but do you want me to go through this now, or?
Through the diagram?
Yeah.
No, I think it might be helpful for the people who weren't here, or just generally to.
All right. I'll put something together. Absolutely. Yes. So the scope of this story is just to implement and do a basic configuration of the can gem. Okay.
Yes.
Patrick.
Of the story we're looking at right now?
Yes.
It says active admin interface at the top there?
No. Add authorization. That's the one I have open right now.
Okay.
Active admin is already voted on and defined.
Oh, yeah. Right. No, what you said is right.
Okay, so add and configure can. Again, it's a shitty name. So let's just add a link to this. So device is already okay, so can we vote on this now?
Yes.
All right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So again, the usual drill: 1, 2, or 3, guys. Yes. Everybody has typed in. On my count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now you just influenced everybody, Patrick. You know.
I jumped off the starting line. Sorry.
Okay. So Raul says 1. The rest of the devs says 2. Raul, again, you're gonna have to explain yourself.
In the other direction this time.
Okay, so you said it's just about installing and generating the main file for authorization. It's not like we have to do much here, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah. Well, I've done this before, so I know that if you haven't done it before, it could be a little tricky to, first of all, understand the whole concept of authorization and setting up the abilities files. So there's some reading to do in the documentation. So that's why I gave it a weak 2, but still a 2. Yeah, and also there are some tests to write because you do, you know, when you set up the abilities, you want to set the ability for this admin to be actually able to log into the system.
Is that gonna be unit test or acceptance test?
It could be mostly units. It's a mix, actually. It's both acceptance. We don't have many methods on our models yet.
No.
Methods could be.
Got a fair amount of background noise.
I don't know who that was. It wasn't me though. Okay, yeah. We don't have many methods on our models yet, but. You know, a lot of these abilities could be defined on the model level as well. So this could involve some unit testing as well. But I don't want to, you know, get ahead of myself here. But this is not a trivial gem to configure. So that's why I give it a 2. Now everybody's muted. That's so silent.
Very reasonable to me.
All right. So. Let's settle for 2. Okay, let's move on to the next story then. Okay, so now let's say we have this admin interface set up and we have an authorization basically set up, and now we want to be able to create menu items. So we have something to sell in this business, right? The story goes, as an admin, in order to be able to add dishes and other products to the system, I would like to be able to access an interface for a CRUD, you know, creating, updating, and deleting menu items. And this involves both acceptance tests, some controller specs, and some model specs, probably. And so we spoke about this, you know, that each dish should be assigned to or each menu item should be assigned to a category. We could cover this in this story, or we can just make a basic CRUD interface and mechanism for menu items and add those categories in a separate story. I don't know. Let's talk about it.
I would vote for that.
Just one question. Isn't active admin gonna do most of this for us?
Nope.
I'm not sure.
Because not most of it. It will do certain things, but not most of it.
What will it do, for instance?
Well, it will create some of the views for us, how to do things, but in terms of the controller actions, I'm not.
Okay,
I'm
we
not
have to do that.
Yeah, I think we have to do them ourselves.
Okay, cool. That's fine.
So to your question, Thomas, I've already started the menu category user story, or I expanded upon that, and that's where I talk about menu categories and adding menu items to categories, etc. So I vote to keep this particular story just focusing on menu items themselves.
Okay, cool. And Michelle, you said something in that line as well, right? Didn't you?
I do.
Okay. So basic CRUD. We want to create. We want to be able to delete them. We want to edit. And delete them, right? Cool.
Absolutely.
So basic CRUD actions. This is not too fancy. I mean, it's not. We don't have to deal with any associations or anything on this one. Dan, cool. Can we vote on this? No.
Sure.
Right. Let's type in
Nobody
values.
jumps the lines now.
Hold your horses there. Exactly. 1, 2, 3, go. Michelle, now you're going to do some explaining.
So the way I'm reading that is just adding CRUD actions to it. So basically just defining the methods for update, add, delete, and read. That seems extremely simple to me.
It is simple. The reason why I gave it a 2 is because we need to write controller specs, and also this is the first story that we will be using some of the generators that ActiveAdmin provides for us. So this could be a little tricky to start with. Okay. So that's why I gave it a 2, at least.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I'll switch mine.
I think the other aspect that might warrant it to be a 2 is if we're going to include the upload of an image associated with a particular menu item. There's a little trickiness there. We may have to pick another gem to facilitate that as well.
I would say that this is not covered in the story.
We're not worrying about images right now. Let's just have them upload. Create menu items, and then I think we have a story for images later on down the line.
I believe we do.
Okay.
So yeah. All right. Let's assign this to a 2. Okay, and then we go. Yeah. So let's say we have menu items, and now we want to create menus. And this is a little more complicated, basically.
Well, let me just give you the background on that. The top part, the feature, is, I think, your original words, Thomas, if you wrote this. I don't know if you did. But then I felt that for us to have more meaningful discussions as a team, it might make sense to start creating scenarios under these features so that we can have a little bit more meat on the bones. Whether we share this with the actual client or not is up to us. But I wanted to ask, are people comfortable with this level of specification, or do we stay at more of a feature high-level description at this point?
I'm not sure I follow the question.
Well,
if you look at the description that we've written so far on these user stories, they strike me as features which are not operable. Cucumber ignores them, right? And to really put meat on the bones, we have to write scenarios that support the feature.
Yeah.
Scenarios of what Cucumber actually operates on.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I started to get into, because I thought we should really start talking about some of the nuts and bolts underneath the hood. The feature is shareable with the client. Scenarios we probably wouldn't share with the client because it's too much.
Okay, so I would say that two observations. Usually I see scenario creation as a part of the development process. So I don't mind them being here in any way, because they give us more input and a clearer picture of what this story is all about. So I think it's great that they are here. But during the process of developing, we will probably add even more scenarios, because there is the sad path, happy path thing, and so there's a lot of scenarios that we need to write for acceptance tests. That's one thing, but it's great. But having said that, usually scenarios is something that we do share with the client in a sort of a acceptance meeting, because we both, the way I would do this is to meet up with the client, fire up the application, show him certain features, but also jump to the code and show him how we describe certain things. So we don't want to just click around the application and get his acceptance on certain stuff by that, but also show him the scenarios that we've written that are very descriptive. So if we do this, then this should happen, right? So scenarios are most definitely something that are shown to the client.
Okay,
so
good.
I think that's the reason why Cucumber is written in like an English-like language, so that client can understand what's happening there.
Yeah. So yes. So in this story, we need to take into account the categories. I understand the menu item categories, menu categories, or what do we call them? Menu.
They're menu categories.
Menu categories. Yeah.
Yep.
And so this is a more, but this is also a CRUD interface kind of thing, right? So in the bare kind of essence thing, it's not too complicated. But since now we have to get the right information from the menu item tables, and we have to consider menu categories, etc. That makes it's more complicated than the previous one. Just want to say that. So the question is whether it's a good, if we should split this up into different stories, if there's a need for that, or if this can be covered in one story alone.
The reason I wrote it in the one story was that this really gets to the heart of the client thinking through how he wants to build his menus. And we need him to really grapple with, well, do you just want to go in and say you've got 50 menu items and just drag and drop every day or every week from the 50 the 5 or 6 you want to offer that day in your menu?
Yeah.
Or do you see the value, if there's any value in creating this intermediate thing we call a category, where you could have, the lunch menu for that day. You could also have weekly specials. You create that menu and you plop those two categories into your menu structure, and they come along with their pre-populated menu items assigned to those categories. Is that a useful concept to you? If not, then we'll do away with menu categories because it's just an extra step for the client. That's the discussion we really need to have with him.
And I spoke to him earlier today, actually. We had a ad hoc impromptu just because I stumbled upon him in the corridor. And so what he has, basically what he has, is a very simple thing. Although it reassured me that we need those categories, because he has like a repertoire of 20 dishes, but he has 3 daily specials and he has 1 weekly special, basically. So, and he changes those specials every day. So on Monday he has certain dishes, and he starts with this weekly special deal that he has for the entire 5-day period, right? But on Tuesday he has 3 different other dishes, and this is a very small business, so they have. He said that they have 2 dishes or 3, and no more, basically. But he has in his he has like 20-25 dishes to choose from when he decides what to have as a daily special, basically.
Oh, that's good to hear. That kind of validates our thoughts on this category.
Yeah. That was what I thought before, but I kind of I popped the question today just to make sure, But then he has stuff like, soft drinks, he has coffee, etc. So we could have a category for that as well, separate category, right?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, so that's why I think that menu categories are a good thing for us.
So to get to your question about do we break this up into multiple user stories or keep with one with multiple scenarios, I don't know. I mean, there's a scenario, of course, we're not even talking about here, which is building a menu in advance. So next week, this week he starts building out his menu for next week. As you guys know, in the model, we have a start date and an end date. Start date when a menu becomes effective, and an end date when it stops and another menu takes over. So those kinds of things, we could build scenarios so we have those discussions with the client as well.
Yeah. So exactly, I would say that on this do we have a date? We have that on the model already.
We added that at one point. We were having a group team discussion, and we thought, well, I was calling it an effectivity date, the date it becomes effective. So we added a start date, so he could work today and start defining a menu that starts next Tuesday.
Yeah. See, okay, because in some restaurants, in most restaurants, you have one, like a book, right? You get when you sit at the table, right? As some a la carte dishes to choose from. But this is not this kind of business. This one, so these menus will be usually only valid for one day, that particular day, and then next Tuesday he might choose some completely different dishes to have as specials, basically. So
on Sunday he could create 6 menus for the week ahead, all at once.
Yeah.
We did this start date business.
Yeah. 5 actually, because we have Saturdays off. So I mean, he only operates on.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So. I mean, unless the menu category is not too complicated to complicate stuff too much, I think we can keep this in one story.
I would vote for that. I think it makes sense to keep menu behavior that the client has to bless and understand in one place, rather than make it disjoint, because we like discrete user stories that break these things up. I think it works better for the client to have all this stuff in one place when he's thinking about menu creation and management.
But this one is complicated because we need to, there will be acceptance tests, of course, as usual, but also controller specs and unit tests to really make sure that all kind of scenarios and are covered, all paths, the happy path, the sad path. If something is, if the shit hits the fan, we need to be able to foresee that, basically, and handle those exceptions. So yeah.
All right.
So here I've just limited myself to happy path for things that the client should be aware of and bless, or help us adjust. Obviously there'd be a lot more scenarios, unhappy path, all that other stuff too. But I'm limited here to something that'd be useful to talk about with the client at this point. I could be wrong. Maybe I should go further on that.
But also, we have to remember to keep this to this is the first story in this, that deals with menus. So we need to keep it to the bare minimum. Really, just just handle the kind of MVP, most viable, the minimal viable product approach to this. That's what do we need here? And nothing fancy. Don't over-engineer this at this level, basically.
Yeah.
At this point. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's vote on it then. Okay.
Sure.
If we're ready to vote, cool. So yeah. Type in. Hold your horses. And 1, 2, 3, go. All right. So now Patrick's going to have to do some explaining.
I'll go with the 3. I'll go with the wisdom of the crowd here.
Oh, that's a very good
running away from explanation.
What's that?
Running away from explanation.
You're dodging the explanation. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm just punting on that. I'm giving in.
Yeah. Good. No, but it is a 3 story, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go with the 3. Okay, so I think we can stop there.
I think, yeah.
Because
Yeah, I agree. To drop fairly soon.
yeah, I mean, this gives us at least a few days of work now, and so if you guys don't mind, unfortunately I cannot pair today because it's getting a little late here. But I've implemented Active Admin before, and I can. Yeah, if somebody else takes the lead on this one, it's okay with me. But I would really like to be involved in a pairing session on that one.
Do same time tomorrow if that works for you guys.
What time?
Same time that we started this meeting, so.
Which is 7 p.m.
Yeah, we can do this right
There's
after the website one dev.
Website one dev meeting.
Yeah.
So, sorry, the time zones just kill me. So
No,
right after.
We have the website one dev meeting at 7 o'clock UTC.
7:30 actually.
Yeah,
it's 7:30. Okay, so or we can move this one, the website one meeting a little, earlier or something. I can talk to Alejandro or some other people. Yeah, but around this time, yeah, tomorrow would be fine.
Okay.
Cool by me.
Cool.
Yep, me too.
Wonderful.
I just pushed the user story, so if you guys want to review it before we end the session, maybe.
Let's see.
Makers Academy Sweden.
Yeah, I created I was telling Michelle this before we hit the record button. I got my the first preliminary order for Sam told you that I'm starting this Makers Academy here in Sweden.
Yeah.
And we've been working for the last 3 weeks or something, creating the website and doing certain things. This is the Swedish website for Makers Academy.
I think I've checked it before.
Yeah, so I just got my first order just a few minutes before I started this this hangout. Yeah, so I'm very happy. Actually.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drop, guys, but I will talk to you tomorrow.
All right, take it easy.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
So let's have a look. Pull request, create user model, and add association to orders. As many orders. This game is expected to have many orders. All right. Looks good to me. And it passed no semaphore. Patrick, do you have any objections to merging this in?
No, that's consistent with the model that we've defined so far, Raul, I assume. So.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna hit the merge button here.
Cool.
Cool beans. And yeah. So I did this because Sampriti is not here, and we usually don't want to merge our own pull requests. But it's
okay.
It's just
that's why I've been holding off on that. I don't want to be the one pushing the button.
But but having said that, if it's a patch or a fix or something, then you just go ahead and merge. Do whatever you have to do.
No, I mean things like updating README, I can patch my own stuff.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
But then features like that, everybody needs to weigh in before we push them.
Good. Cool. All right. So that'll be it for today, guys. Unless there's any other business that we need to cover.
No,
not for me right now.
For me.
All right. Okay. I think that once we start to scaffold this active admin application, we'll be able to push this out to Heroku, and we're gonna see some of her efforts in action actually, and I think it's a good thing. So
okay, just one quick question before we drop off. The mock client application that we need to do, I was thinking we've got someone like Aaron, for instance, or Piotr that are more front end guys. Isn't it possible, like maybe we draft some stories for them to see if they can get started on something? I don't know. That's just something I was thinking about today.
Yeah, the thing is, absolutely, we could do that. The thing is, what we need somebody that can scaffold or develop a Sinatra application. I'm not very good at that. I know some pretty is.
Well, does it really need to be a Sinatra app?
It
Could be just a
certainly doesn't
JavaScript
need to be a. It could be a JavaScript application. Yes, yes. It could be Angular. It could be Ember. It could be just regular HTML5 with some AJAX calls. Using jQuery or something. It's absolutely not. It doesn't have
And
to
besides,
be.
it's just going to be something to show off capabilities to the user. It doesn't have to be something fancy.
Yes, yes. Although what we want, I would argue against the plain HTML5 and jQuery app because we still want to learn something from it. So I would say that if somebody would come and say, I want to do this in Angular JS or, other of the modern frameworks, I would prefer that.
So I've worked with Angular JS. I know Aaron also had work. He did work with Angular, so I'm not sure about the rest of the team. But anyway, that's something we can. I just wanted to get your point on that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's always easy to say something rack-based because that's what I've been working on a lot. So, and I've been doing some Sinatra and Padrino apps, but I haven't, I wouldn't take a lead on that.
Okay.
But I would definitely say Rails is not needed for an application like that because it's an overkill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
All right.
That's it for me.
Live long and prosper, guys.
Have a good
All right,
night.
thanks, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.